future. So you have another vehicle to start off and something to end with as you go through. Okay? So then we've also got Santa Barbara Computing Services. Michael can help you there with his social media. Okay? Personal Power Project, that's part of this, health stuff and lotion for your face or going solar or whatever. This is a project that I've been doing for years, and solar, all kinds of good things on there. So you might want to check that out. Yeah, I'm affiliate for Tesla. I could make some money if I spent a lot of time there doing it. Somebody just made enough to buy 2 of their Roadsters as an affiliate marketer on YouTube, and they immediately changed their policy and said, oh, we can't do that again. It's possible, you could do it. There's Victor, one of my wholesalers from the past, holding up a check there at our house up in the mountains of Santa Barbara. We got a nice place with a great view up there of 25 years worth of work pulling that one together. And that was actually property that was from somebody who's about ready to go into bankruptcy. It was vacant, had no house, and we went in there and bought it for $160,000 and built the property up there. And if you look on Zillow now, it's worth $2 million according to Zillow. So this is something that happens over time. This is not something that you get rich quick and, there's a secret to doing it. No, there's hard work, there's education, and there's desire just to keep moving on, because we're all going to retire. We're all looking to live the lifestyle we want. So this is a vehicle through real estate to be able to do that. Okay? And now we have Randy Hughes. Okay? Thank you, Randy. I'm going to get this out of the way and pull up some of his stuff. Okay. Oh, I've got something here I want to also do before he gets up here. Okay. Let me pull this up. There we go. So, Randy Hughes, I love this guy. He's great. He's, I always put out there in my advertisements, who can you trust? Land Trust, Mr. Land Trust, Randy Hughes, and that's how I feel about this guy. He's very honest, very easy to work with. Mr. Land Trust Randy Hughes is a full-time real estate investor who bought his first rental house in 1969. After investing for 10 years, Randy decided to learn more about how to protect his investments and not be a target for lawsuits. Randy has used land trust in his business for over 40 years and says he would never own real estate in his own personal name. We welcome America's #1 expert on the use of land trusts for real estate investors, Randy Hughes. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Nice to come back to SB.
Yes, Santa Barbara.
Let's see if we can.
That's SB, not BS. Okay, and you got that.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, we have a nice cozy little crowd today, so we're going to get down and personal here. I assume you're all real estate investors or one of these, right? Anybody been investing longer than 5 years? Okay. I had probably 15 houses in my name before I woke up to the realization that was really stupid. That all you had to do is go online and type in my name and you could see everything out of it. You could see what it was assessed for, so you knew about the value. You could see what the debt was if I borrowed money. And with those two numbers, you can pretty much estimate my net worth, can't you? So you can see how stupid that is. It's kind of an ironic twist to our business here. And that is, the richer you get, the more wealth you build, the bigger target you are for a lawsuit. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but lawyers don't sue poor people. You ever notice that? Because they understand that there's a difference between suing and winning and collecting. You can win all day in court, but if you can't collect blood out of the tournament, you're not going to get paid. So the lawyers will do what's called an asset search, which you don't even know what happened. So they'll either type your name into the computer, or they'll go with one of the services, like, have you ever heard of Nexus Lexus? Mm-hmm. Here's I'm not a lawyer, but I do subscribe to the Illinois Bar Journal. And so, because I figure it's a good idea to swim with those sharks that may be coming after you, and understand the way they're thinking. And inside one of the issues of the Illinois Bar Journal was this full-page ad. And it says, uncovering the landlord's hidden assets was as easy as reading a sports page. Before attorneys took on the renter's suit, that's the tenant suing the landlord, against the rumored wealthiest man in town, they wanted to verify his assets. The search yielded little until they found stories of his string of polo ponies through the LexisNexis collection of 12,000 news sources. So here's the point. If you're going to be serious about this business, if you're going to stay in it a long time and build wealth, you need to do it the right way. Because if you don't, you can end up working for somebody else your whole life. And I'll give you some real life stories today, some real life examples of things that have happened to me and that have happened to my students that will hopefully shock you into never owning real estate in your name. That means don't put your name on the title, right? So how do you do it? If your name doesn't go on the title, whose name does go on the title? There's my standard disclaimer, which says I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an accountant, so I'm not giving you legal or accounting advice. The way you do this is through a trust. They're mainly known as land trusts throughout the country, but in California, they're mostly called title holding trusts. But they're all the same. It does hold the title to your real estate. So you appoint a trustee, somebody to hold the title in their name, and you own the beneficial interest. You're the beneficiary of the trust. That means you're removed from the public records, but you're still in control. You can make bigger profits when selling using a trust than if you're not using a trust on the same deals you're doing. Are any of you doing contract assignments? Okay, several of you are. And belonging to and joining a club like this is really smart because oftentimes you can let the members do your hard work for you. There are a lot of people out there that, I call them bird dogs. They can find a deal, they're good negotiators, but they can't close the deal. Their credit score isn't high enough, they don't have enough down payment, whatever it is. So they'll come to a meeting like this and say, hey, I got this deal out in Scarsdale and it's got $20,000 of profit in it. If you give me $5,000 today, I'll assign my beneficial interest in the trust to you, and then you close the deal in a month or two, and you'll make 15. So it's a great way to make money belonging to these kind of clubs. But it's called a contract assignment. And it's a lot smarter to do it inside a trust than it is in your own name personally. Anybody buying or selling notes? So what we're talking about is if, say you want to buy a rental property, you need $200,000 and you can't qualify or don't want to qualify at a bank, and go to a private lender, that lender will loan you the money and they'll have a note secured, you'll sign that note securing that. And you'll give them a mortgage as well. Now, that note can be sold for face value or a discount. But my point is, if you're going to do note buying and selling, you should do it in a trust, not in your own name personally. Now, does anybody have a IRA, Roth IRA, or traditional IRA? Not yet, but you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to live the tax-free lifestyle, get a Roth. Now, you can only put $5,500 a year in there, so you are limited. But all the profits that you take out of a Roth are tax-free. So, as an extreme example, let's say you put $5,500 in, and you bought a piece of real estate that went up $100,000 in 1 year. You could take the $100,000 profit out tax-free out of your Roth. You can't take the $5,500 out, but you can take the $100,000 out. So if you want to live the tax-free life, do it with a Roth. But if you're going to do it with a Roth, Make the Roth the beneficiary of your trust. Again, you don't want to invest directly in the name of your Roth and have it out in public records. Anybody in here have an LLC? The old people in the back have them, right? You got an LLC? An LLC it's a type of corporation. It's a limited liability company, but it's the same as a corporation. It just has some benefits, some extra benefits that corporations don't have. But in essence, from a tax standpoint, it's a corporation. Just because you put your real estate in a trust doesn't mean there's no more liability on that property in the trust. The liability flows through to the beneficiary. And that's why most real estate investors will not be the beneficiary themselves personally. They'll make their Roth, their LLC, the beneficiary of the trust. That way you get the privacy of the land trust and you get the asset protection benefit of the LLC. So, most of your attorneys, not only in California, but all over the United States, I spoke 26 times last year to clubs like this, all over the United States. So I get a pretty good feel of what attorneys are telling people. And 99.9% of them will tell you, put your real estate in an LLC. Right? For asset protection. And what I say is they just skip the step. First put each property into a separate trust, and then make the beneficiaries of those trusts your LLC. Now let's analyze why. Why does that make sense?
I'm sorry, you said to place your beneficiaries.
Put each property into a separate trust, and make the beneficiary of those trusts your LLC.
Okay.
So, here's the reason why. Does it make sense to you to buy 10 rental houses and put them all in one LLC? No. Didn't Grandma and Grandpa teach us you don't put all your eggs in one basket? Well, that's right. If you have a lawsuit against one property and you lose, they got all 10 of them. Done. But if you put them each property in a separate trust, then if one is attacked, then you lose it, so you lose it. At least you don't lose all 10 of them. Yes, ma'am?
An example of the beneficiary is like Hughes Family LLC.
Well, it could be, but I wouldn't do that myself. That's another big mistake, I think, that lawyers advise their clients, and that is to name the trust after themselves or the LLC.
And what is it that you are advising?
Well, we're going to talk about naming the trust here in a few minutes, but you don't want your name on anything. There's no benefit other than ego, and ego's not worth it.
I just see that. I see that in real estate, like Hughes Family Trust.
Right.
And their deed.
Yeah,
in that name.
which is silly.
Oh.
Now, pardon me?
Most of the time they use the last name.
Lots of times, I've seen the social security number in the name of the trust.
Crazy, my heaven.
Yeah. But here, if you just are so compelled that you've got to put a name in your trust or a name on your LLC, use somebody else's name.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Why would I do that?
And an
This throws the dogs right off the scent immediately, doesn't it? They thought they were suing Randy Hughes, but it's the Smith Family Trust. We must have something wrong here. Let's reinvestigate. Let's spend a bunch of legal fees. You throw them off right from day one. Yes, sir.
So, you're saying that the trust, you're gonna put each property in a different trust,
Mhm.
right? But then the beneficiary is gonna be the LLC.
Yes, sir.
So, if they sue one trust, they're gonna get to LLC, and if they find the LLC, they're gonna see that you own a lot more trust. Can you still go around, or,
Well, you got a couple of things going on there. If they sue the trust and they win, they get the property in the trust.
yeah.
Now, theoretically, if the LLC is responsible for something, the LLC did something wrong, yeah, they could still come after the LLC.
Okay.
But here's the reason why this works. Because lawyers don't like to sue trusts because they don't know who's behind it. There's no registry for a trust, like there is I can look up your LLC and see that you own it.
Or to find all the information.
Or your corporation, right. But they can't do that with a trust. That means they're gonna have to file a lawsuit, do all the legwork, spend a bunch of money to get to the point of even finding out who the beneficiary list is. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to deflect frivolous lawsuits, so they don't even start. So what will happen is they'll go sue somebody that owns real estate in their name if they discover it's going to be difficult to get to you. And here's a prime example. I sold a house in the year 2000 that my wife and 2 daughters lived in, and I got a letter 6 months after closing from the lawyers saying that they had to replace an air conditioner, some flooring, and all the toilets in the house. And if I would just send them a check for $8,000, they wouldn't sue me. Now, are you responsible for maintenance after you sell a house? So what's going on here? What do we call this in America today?
Frivolous lawsuit.
Extortion.
Extortion, frivolous lawsuit, a scam, intimidation. And believe it or not, there are a whole lot of people out there making a living doing this. And it's a lot easier to do that than it is to do what we're doing, working, right? So a lot of people would have buckled under that. They got that letter and they would have said, oh my God, let's send them a check. I don't want to get sued, have all those sleepless nights. But I didn't want to play that game. I was already prepared. You see, what we're talking about, asset protection, is something you have to be proactive. You can't wait until your house is on fire before you run out and buy fire insurance, right? And everyone in here has fire insurance, I'll bet you anything. And everybody in here has car insurance. Why? Because something may happen. You're insuring against a future possible loss, right? That's all we're talking about here. But in a much bigger way, the numbers are a lot bigger based on your real estate holdings than the car or even your own personal residence. So yes, Dan.
So that might help discourage people from doing things like mold and lead-based paint lawsuits.
Exactly. It stops a whole lot of this little crap. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be responsible for your debts. You know, if you say you're going to pay somebody, you pay them. I'm talking about the lawsuits that come at us when we build wealth that are unjustified. So I sent him a letter back and I said, you must have mistaken me for the owner. Did you see my name on anything? Did you see it on the deed? Did you see it on the seller disclosure? Did you see it on the listing agreement? Maybe did you check the HUD 1? Did you see my name on that? And he sent me a letter back and said, well, no, I didn't, but my client said that you lived in the house.
Said.
Some of us live in houses that we don't own, right? Oh, and then Mr. Tough Guy goes on to say, if you'll just send us a check for $8,000, we won't sue you. Or tell us who the owner was.
Oh, my God.
So I sent him a letter back and I said, I'm not quite sure who the owner was. It was some kind of a trust. You know, they're very complicated. I don't quite understand. And my last line was, good luck. And you know what happened? Why is that?
Too much work.
Too much work. It was going to cost them too much money. Here's the conversation I imagined the client and attorney had that day when they got my letter. Well, Bob, it's not going to be easy to screw this guy. It's the last 5 people we sent this letter to. What do you want to do? You want to write a check, Bob? And I'll chase this guy. And we'll figure it out somehow, some way. And Bob said, no, let's just go sue somebody who owns real estate in their name. And that's what they did. So if you're using these trusts, and a lawyer here tells you, oh, land trusts, they're worthless, they're not asset protection tools, tell him that story. That sure protected my assets, didn't it? Now, the bottom line is a land trust is not designed as an asset protection tool. An LLC is. But just by not owning real estate in your name becomes an asset protection tool, as you can see, right? Just by getting your name out of the county record. Because if they can type your name in to the county records website and find out everything you own, you're going to have things happen to you that you don't even know the source of. For example, if you're at a party, you have a couple of drinks and you're talking to a friend and say, yeah, I bought that 50-unit apartment building over on Johnson Street. And somebody's standing behind you that hears that. And Monday morning, there's a slip and fall on that property. And you never knew what happened. That's the way the game's played. So if you're gonna be serious about building wealth in this business, take a little bit of time and a little bit of money to learn how to protect it. Doesn't that seem logical to you? After all you do, let's see, did in this one. Avoiding frivolous lawsuits. I just told you that story. I'll tell you a couple more in a minute. But what do we call this tool of the smart real estate investor? Well, it's called a title holding trust or a land trust. But don't let it intimidate you. It's just a few pieces of paper. We could write a trust on one piece of paper and it'd be perfectly legal. Now, if you decide to become my student, and I'll teach you how to do this, I'll give you my 40-page trust agreement. I just updated it. It's a 6.0 version about a month ago. It's brand new off the press, 40 pages. And it has really cool stuff in it. For example, if my trustee even smells a lawsuit coming, she must immediately resign and send all of the paperwork to the successor trustee, who's going to be in a different state. So, yeah, you may get to me, but it's going to cost you a fortune, and you'll probably give up. Unless there are millions of dollars at stake, you're probably going to give up before you get to the bottom of the barrel. We need two things to form a trust. We need a trust agreement, and we need a deed. That's all. Now, if you become my student, I'm going to give you several forms, administrative forms, so if you want to change the trustee or change the beneficiary or amend the trust in any way. But basically, to form that first trust, all you need is a trust agreement and a deed. And two parties, a trustee and a beneficiary. Jex, you could be my trustee. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no qualification, no licensing, no insurance, no bonding, no continuing education, nothing. So I could form a trust here in California and ask you to be my trustee. And then I could be the beneficiary, or my LLC could be the beneficiary. Okay, so if you're going to be my trustee, then we're going to sign a trust agreement. That's that 40-page document. You're going to sign it, I'm going to sign it, and it's going to say what your duties are and what my duties are. I don't want to ask you to do anything other than to hold that title. Now, some states will require my trustee to have certain duties, like insure the property or collect rents or something. I'm not going to ask you to do that, because chances are you're going to be doing this as a favor to me and not charging me. And even if you were charging me, I still don't want you to have any authority to do anything other than what I tell you to do and hold that title. Okay? Some of us in here may be old enough, maybe Dan and I, to remember the one-room schoolhouse. We used to educate our children in America in one schoolroom. All the kids, the young kids and the old kids were all in one room. They taught each other. Remember that, Dan?
Oh, yeah, I sure do.
And when a child would act up in class and got in trouble, and it was usually a boy, the teacher would stick him in the corner on a stool and make him stare at the wall. And to further humiliate him, she would put something on his head. What was it? A dunce cap. So the kid is scarred for life, right? And you imagine sitting in front of all your friends with a dunce hat? That's how I view my trustee. I want my trustee to sit in the corner and not do anything for 20 years, if that's what it takes, until I'm ready to do one of two things. I'm going to sell the property out of the trust, so I need her to get off the stool, come over here and sign this deed, or I'm going to put some financing on that property, and I need her to come over here and sign the mortgage. Now, she's not personally responsible for anything she's signing on. She's just holding the title and doing what I tell her to do. She has no personal liability. But if I'm not doing one of those two things, she can sit there and stare at the corner for 20 years. I'll do everything else as the beneficiary. Does that make sense? Now, I have in my home study course, which is how I teach this information to you, I have a whole chapter in here on who can be your trustee, who can be and who should be. But the short answer is it should be somebody you trust, somebody with a different last name than you, and somebody who lives out of the county in which the property is located. And why is that important? To sue a trust, you have to sue and serve the trustee. So if Jexie, if Jexie is my trustee, when I file the deed with her name on it to hold the title for me, it doesn't say where she lives. She may be in California, she may be in Florida. But you're gonna have to find her and physically touch her with those lawsuit papers, or the lawsuit doesn't start. So that's why I want my trustee to be at least out of the county, if not out of the state, of where my property is located.
Are you able to create this internationally, or will that work internationally at all?
No, it really doesn't.
In their court?
Mexico, you can use a trust in Mexico, but you have to use a bank as trustee.
Okay, very
You can in Canada, but they do some extra funny taxation. Our laws came over from, legally it's called escheat, from England. So the trusts have been around for a couple thousand years in England. And they came over here a little over 100 years ago when Chicago Title formed the first land trust in a suburb of Chicago. But you really need to keep the laws to your benefit, keep it here in the United States. Now, it's a good question though, because there's no federal land trust law. It's all state by state. And only 6 states have an actual land trust statute, although they all recognize the validity of it. California, for example, doesn't have an actual land trust statute, but they're legal to use in California. Yes, sir.
What state would you recommend to file the LLC? Just for, you know.
What state do I
Yeah.
form the LLC in?
Yeah, because I mean, there's one that have more secrecy, you know.
That's a great question.
Because I hear the Delaware is one of the main.
That's a great question.
There's a lot of those companies, you know, the LLC is based in Delaware.
In a minute, I'm gonna give you a phone number that you can text to and get a copy of this free booklet. I get asked pretty much the same questions wherever I go all over the country, and so I put together this little booklet which gives the answer to over 50 reasons to use a trust, okay? But you, because you just asked a wonderful question, is gonna get a hard copy, highly expensive version of this for asking that question. You're quite welcome. No expense is spared in this room. That's, the reason why that's a great question is because we're in California. I was in Florida last weekend, in Tampa, and it costs about $300 to form an LLC in Florida. In Indiana, $75. In California, $800. In Illinois, it's $500. So, a lot of you folks in California have been going to Nevada and forming your trust, or Wyoming. And then if you come back to California and buy real estate and you title it in the name of that out-of-state LLC, California says, we're gonna charge you. That LLC is doing business in our state. We're gonna charge you $800 for that LLC, and you're gonna pay the fees of Wyoming also. So you just shot yourself in the foot. So here's how to avoid that. Use a trust. You make the trust own the property. You make the beneficiary of the trust your LLC, your Wyoming LLC. Now the LLC is not doing business in California. The trust is. And the trust isn't required to register. Okay? So that was just worth coming for today, wasn't it? That little piece of information was worth your coming today, wasn't it? Yeah.
Say
Yeah.
$3,000 a year.
That's right. Yes, sir.
I have 2 things. Firstly, I own the LLC in Wyoming. It cost me like $25. So,
To start up or to
Just-
run everything?
I think it was to start out. This was like a few years ago.
Yeah, it's more now. I've got one, and I think it's $200 a year.
Okay.
And it depends on who you have form it. You can do it on your own.
I didn't do it on my own. I had some third party.
Yeah, and that's the tough part about this thing. Sometimes saving money doesn't save money. For example, you could go to like incorporate.com and form an LLC, and they'll charge you $500.